My ex-wife splashed champagne in my face before her friends, screaming, "You fool." I never liked the taste of champagne, not really. Too sweet, too sharp, like something trying too hard to celebrate itself. But I drank it anyway, smiling politely, holding the flute like it meant something. I stood near the window, the condensation from the glass wetting my palm, watching the golden bubbles rise like they had a purpose. Everyone else was laughing, or at least making that laugh sound people make when they're half-buzzed and performing closeness. That kind of brittle, echoey laughter that never quite reaches the eyes. She was across the room. Marla, my wife, ex-wife technically, though the divorce hadn't quite finalized. She was standing next to two of her friends, women with names like Lainey and Brooke, or maybe one of them was named something double-barreled like Anna Claire. I could never keep track. They always made me feel like a background actor in my own life, like they saw me as a shape that filled space beside her, not a person with skin and feelings and history. Marla was radiant. Not in the romantic, breathless way I used to think of her, but in that polished, high-sheen way of someone who knows exactly how to glow under the right lighting. Her dress was black and sleek and expensive-looking, something I'd never seen before. She wore her hair up the way she used to on date nights, a strand or two falling on purpose. I watched her laugh, touch someone's arm, tilt her head. She was performing joy like it was a role she'd been rehearsing. This dinner party was her idea. "Closure," she said when she called. "I think it would be good for us to do something adult, civil." She used that word a lot, civil, like our entire history could be managed with good lighting and decent wine. I didn't want to go, not really, but part of me still wanted to be someone she could see, not just look at but see, so I said yes. I shaved, wore the navy button-up she used to like on me, the one she said made me look grown in a good way. I even brought a bottle of wine, though I knew it was probably wrong. Her crowd was into orange wines now, or something biodynamic and artisanal. Whatever, I was trying. The apartment was staged perfectly. She had candles burning that smelled like cedar and figs, and the music playing was some moody, ambient playlist that sounded curated for heartbreak and sophistication. The whole place felt like a showroom, her showroom. I stood there and felt like an artifact of some forgotten version of her. Someone handed me a glass of champagne. I don't remember who. I just remember the cold of it, how it clung to my skin. The bubbles tickled my nose, made me feel a little sick. I sipped out of politeness and let the conversation move around me like wind I couldn't walk against. Brooke, I think it was Brooke, asked how I was doing. The question felt like a trap. How are you doing? Like I was supposed to say good or staying busy or you know how it is. I said, still breathing, and smiled. She gave me this tight-lipped, sympathetic nod and turned back to the group like I'd passed some sort of test. That's when I started noticing how everyone was watching us. Me and Marla, they were pretending not to, but you can always tell when people are watching a thing break. It's like slowing down at a car wreck. Their smiles were too still. Their eyes flicked toward her, then me, then back again, like checking weather patterns. Marla finally came over to me. She looked beautiful but distant, like someone I once loved in a different lifetime. Her hand grazed my arm and she said, "Glad you came," like we were co-hosts of some awkward TV show about civilized divorcees. I nodded, said, "Thanks for inviting me." I almost asked why, but I didn't. She turned toward the group, raised her glass, and said something about new chapters and letting go with grace. Everyone clinked glasses and smiled except me. I sipped mine too fast and felt the sugar coat my throat like syrup. Someone made a joke about how I must be the most understanding ex-husband in the city. Laughter again, that dry, brittle kind. I felt my mouth smile but my heart sink. There was a shift in the air. I remember it because my stomach dropped a little the way it used to when we fought, just before her voice would rise, just before something ugly slipped out between us. It was a joke, I think, a comment. Someone asked if we tried couples therapy like it was some novelty. I think I said, "We tried." She fired the therapist. I meant it to be funny, a light jab, but it landed wrong. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, a twitch I knew too well. She turned slowly, that smile frozen on her face. "You fool," she said, soft at first, but then louder, loud enough for the room to fall quiet. "You absolute fool." The champagne glass in her hand tilted. For a split second, I thought she was kidding. It felt surreal, like a bad play. Then the cold hit me, the sharp sting of it splashing into my face, my eyes, my shirt. My skin flinched before my brain could process it. Gasps around the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I stood there dripping. The sugar in the champagne made my face sticky, my collar cling to my neck. The silence was worse than the sting. Everyone was staring at me like I was the one who'd broken something, like I was the uninvited guest at my own unraveling. Marla didn't look angry, she looked satisfied. A precise, practiced fury. Her eyes were sharp and wet, but she didn't cry. She never did in public. I blinked through the sting in my eyes and set the glass down on the windowsill, quietly, like if I moved gently enough, I could make it unhappen. No one said anything, not to me, not for me. I didn't wait for apologies or explanations. I just walked past the stunned faces, the whispered shock, the stilted attempts at pretending things were fine. The door made a hollow thud as it closed behind me. Outside, the air was cool, the world was dark, indifferent. The laughter inside kept going, eventually. Maybe they'd write me off as unstable, maybe they'd side with her, maybe they wouldn't care at all. I walked with no destination, the taste of champagne still on my lips, my shirt clinging to my back. Every step felt like walking out of a dream that had rotted from the inside. And I knew without ceremony or clarity that whatever version of love we had was gone, not just broken, evaporated. Something hollowed out over years and polished for display until all that remained was the echo of what once felt like home. That was the night it all broke, and I didn't even have the words for it yet. The first night I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just sat on the floor of the new apartment with my back against the wall, lights off, the hum of the refrigerator pulsing like a second heartbeat I hadn't asked for. It was strange how much silence could ache, not the peaceful kind. The heavy, pressurized kind, like when you're underwater too long and the world is muffled and distant and cruel. I moved into the apartment over the laundromat 2 days after the champagne. I didn't take much, just a suitcase, my laptop, a box of books I hadn't read in years, and the leather chair Marla never liked because it was too masculine. That chair became my island. I ate in it, read in it, slept in it when the bed felt too wide and empty and wrong. The landlord's name was Ravi. He gave me a half smile when I moved in, handed me the keys like he'd seen this story before. I wanted to ask him what the ending was, but I was too tired to talk. I stopped answering texts. People asked what happened, if I was okay. I lied, said I was taking time for myself. The phrase felt like chewing cardboard. No one wants the full truth, that you wake up nauseous, that brushing your teeth feels like an act of performance, that some mornings you lie on the bathroom floor because standing up feels like betrayal. I lived off takeout for a while, mostly pad thai and pizza. I'd leave the boxes stacked on the counter like I was building a wall between myself and responsibility. The place smelled like soy sauce and loneliness. Every time I thought about cooking something real, I'd hear Marla's voice in my head, "You always leave the pan to burn, that's too much garlic, you never follow the recipe," and I'd throw the whole idea in the trash. The days were slippery. I lost track of time. Sometimes I'd wake at 3 p.m. thinking it was morning. Other times I'd lie awake at 4 a.m. listening to the washing machines rumble underneath me, imagining all the lives attached to the shirts and socks tumbling through that warm chaos. That was the strangest part, the realization that life didn't stop just because mine had cracked open. People kept doing laundry, walking their dogs, laughing too loudly in bars I didn't have the strength to enter. I kept to myself, except for Matteo. Matteo worked the morning shift at the little cafe around the corner. He had a silver nose ring, wore black nail polish, always played music a little too loud behind the counter. He remembered my order after the third visit, black coffee, no sugar. One day he asked how I was doing, and instead of lying, I just shrugged. He handed me the cup without charging me and said, "I've been there." He didn't press, that's why I kept going back. I started writing again, not anything coherent, just fragments, notes on my phone, scraps of sentences in the margins of takeout menus. Pain is loud, grief is quiet. She smiled with all her teeth, not her eyes. I still smell her shampoo in my sheets even though I changed them. I never wrote her name, it felt too sacred, or maybe too cursed. I thought of therapy, even looked up a few names, but the idea of sitting across from someone and unraveling everything felt exhausting. Where do you even start? Hi, my ex-wife doused me in champagne and humiliated me in front of people I hated, and now I can't remember what it feels like to want anything. Instead, I walked. Every night, just before the laundromat closed, I'd slip outside and walk the blocks of our neighborhood, not our anymore, but it still felt like a place we had once shared breath in. I'd pass by familiar storefronts, restaurants where we used to argue over appetizers. I'd press my palms to my jacket pockets to keep from shaking. One night, I walked past the house we used to rent, the little one with the chipped blue door and the lemon tree out back. The curtains were drawn, a different car in the driveway. Still, I stood across the street for a long time, watching, waiting, like maybe a past version of me might step out the front door, tired but loved, and wave. He didn't. I started having dreams. Strange ones. Marla would be there, but younger, the version of her from when we first met, with ripped jeans and that reckless smile before things got sharp. In one dream, she poured honey on my hands and whispered, "This is how you learn to let go." I woke up crying and couldn't explain why. Some mornings, I couldn't feel my chest. Not numb, exactly, more like hollow. Like someone had scooped out all the noise inside me and left me a quiet shell that didn't echo. I stopped looking at myself in mirrors, not because I couldn't stand the sight, I just didn't know who I was looking at. My eyes looked older. My skin sagged in places I didn't remember it sagging. I looked like someone who'd seen something he couldn't unsee, and maybe I had. What no one tells you is that heartbreak is not loud. It's not grand gestures or crying in the rain. It's slow, monotonous, a dull ache under your skin. It's empty cereal boxes and silent phones. It's missing someone who isn't dead but might as well be. But there were small things. Mateo started slipping little notes under my coffee cup. "You're still here, that counts. Don't let today be louder than tomorrow. Existence is defiance, keep going." I didn't thank him, I just nodded. I think he understood. Then one afternoon, I found myself on a park bench, notebook in hand, pen moving without my permission. I wrote, "I am not healed, but I am healing. There's a difference." And somehow that felt like something. It had been 2 months since the champagne. Maybe 3, I'd stopped counting by then. The weather had turned the kind of cold that cracks your knuckles and makes your breath visible. I'd grown used to the stillness of my new life, the slow rhythm of waking up alone, drinking coffee in silence, and trying not to look backward. But grief has a way of circling back, like a bird that always finds its nest. The call came on a Thursday, early evening. I remember because the light was dimming, the sky turning that strange blue-gray that makes everything feel like a memory. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my chest tightened anyway. I answered without thinking, and there she was. Her voice hadn't changed, that same clipped elegance, the subtle upward lilt at the end of sentences like she was always slightly amused. She said hi and I almost dropped the phone. My throat closed before I could respond. There was a long pause, too long, then she filled it with small talk like she was testing the water. "I was in the neighborhood and thought about you, just wanted to see how you were holding up." I didn't know how to answer that question anymore. "I'm here," I said, which wasn't quite true but wasn't a lie either. She sighed, one of those heavy, practiced sighs that always came just before she asked me to take responsibility for something I didn't fully understand. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, "about us. About that night. I shouldn't have done that. The champagne, it was theatrical. I don't know what came over me." I laughed. It startled even me, sharp and involuntary. "You poured alcohol in my face in front of a room full of people, Marla. That's not theatrical. That's cruelty in a party dress." She was quiet. I think she expected me to be gentler. I'd always been the soft one, the peacemaker, the absorber, but something inside me had calcified since that night, and I wasn't going to pretend it hadn't. She tried again. I guess I just didn't know what else to do. I felt invisible. You were always so detached, like I could never reach you anymore. And there it was, the same old song, as if my withdrawal was the root of all things. Like my silence had grown in a vacuum instead of being carved out by her constant erosion. I shut down, I said slowly, because every time I told you I was hurting, you made it about how inconvenient that was for you, like my feelings were a mess you had to clean up after. I heard her inhale sharply, then exhale like she was bracing for impact. You remember when I told you I didn't feel like myself anymore? I went on. How I said I couldn't find joy in anything. You told me I was just being dramatic, that I was bored, that maybe I needed a hobby. I wasn't yelling. My voice was calm, calmer than I'd expected, but underneath it was a trembling I could feel in my hands. You minimized everything, I said, turned my pain into an inconvenience. And when I started to shrink from that, when I stopped trying to make you see me, you acted like that was the betrayal. She didn't interrupt. I don't think she knew how. Marla was always quick with a comeback, but now she just sat with the silence. Maybe she was remembering, maybe she was regretting. I didn't care. This wasn't for her. I was trying to survive in a house that felt like a museum of a life we no longer lived in, I said. And every time I reached for you, you backed away like I was asking for too much. I wasn't even asking to be loved, just to not be dismissed. A wind rattled the window behind me. I looked at my own reflection in the glass, half-lit, tired, but standing. I'm not saying I was perfect, I added. I know I went quiet. I know I disappeared in the middle of things, but I needed help. And instead of reaching for me, you threw a goddamn party. There was a sniffle, a shift. She was crying, I think, or pretending to. I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't know how to love you when you were like that, she said softly. Then you should have left, I replied, quieter now, but instead you kept me there like an artifact, something to show off when it suited you, something to destroy when it didn't. Another long pause. I did love you, she said, voice cracking. I know, I said, but it wasn't the kind of love I needed. And that was the truth, as clean and terrible as it was. Love, in the end, isn't enough if it doesn't make you feel safe, and hers hadn't, not for a long time. So what now? She asked, almost a whisper. Now, I said, I keep going, and I let it be done. Can we still talk, eventually? I looked at the empty room around me, the chair in the corner, the quiet hum of my new life. No, I said gently, not for a while, maybe not ever. She said okay, she didn't fight it. We hung up. The phone buzzed in my hand for a second afterward, that phantom sensation of wanting to hold on even when you know you shouldn't. I sat for a long time after that, no music, no TV, just the hum of the world slowly stitching itself back together around me. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just breathed, and for the first time in a long time that felt like enough. It's strange how the world doesn't care that you're healing. The city still groans with traffic, people still walk too fast, the guy upstairs still stomps like he's dragging a body across the floor. There are no announcements, no soft music playing when you make it through a hard day. Just life unfolding whether you're ready for it or not. But one morning I noticed the light, that's all, just the way it stretched across my kitchen floor in this long, soft ribbon, gold and quiet and real. I stood there barefoot, coffee in hand, and it hit me. I hadn't thought about her name in 3 whole hours, maybe even longer. I almost smiled. There's no grand turning point. No montage where I get my life back together, start running again, get promoted, meet someone new at the farmer's market who loves my quirks and makes me forget. No, it's not like that. It's slower, grittier, more honest. It starts with brushing your teeth at the same time every morning, with doing your laundry before it spills onto the floor, with cooking yourself an actual meal, nothing fancy, just eggs and toast, maybe some sautéed spinach if you're feeling bold. You eat it without your phone. You sit with the silence. You let it stop being the enemy. I started leaving the apartment more. Not far, not fast, just to walk, to feel the sky again. There's this little bookstore tucked behind an alley near Mateo's cafe. I wandered in one afternoon and stayed for 2 hours. The woman at the counter wore a mustard sweater and smelled like pine. She didn't ask me anything, just nodded when I left with a used copy of Baldwin and a notebook I didn't need. That night I wrote, "I'm not trying to become someone new. I'm just trying to return to someone I forgot." I think I meant it. I don't talk about Marla much anymore, not out loud. Sometimes her voice still plays in my head, usually when I'm doing something she used to critique, folding shirts the wrong way, seasoning food too heavily, leaving books on the couch. But the sting is duller now, more like a scar than an open wound. I haven't blocked her number, but I don't reach out. She sent one more text weeks after the call, "Hope you're okay." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things are better left unacknowledged. That's how they lose power. I keep writing, not every day, but enough. Some nights I sit on the fire escape with my notebook and just scribble phrases like "still breathing" or "this moment right here is mine." It's not profound. It's not meant to be. It's just a record that I existed, that I made it through. Mateo and I talk more now. He invited me to an open mic night. I didn't perform, just listened. Some of the poems were terrible. One girl cried through hers and still got a standing ovation. I didn't roll my eyes. I got it. There's something beautiful about speaking, even when your voice shakes. One night, after everyone left, Mateo looked at me and said, "You seem lighter." I didn't know how to respond. I just said, "Yeah, I think I am." He smiled and said, "Good, stay that way, or let yourself get heavy and come back again. That's allowed too." I think about that a lot, that it's okay to get heavy, that healing isn't linear, that there are no gold stars for surviving, no medals for getting out of bed, but we do it anyway. Sometimes I still dream about her. Sometimes the dream is soft, we're sitting on the couch, younger, dumber, in love. Other times it's the moment the champagne hits my face over and over like some kind of emotional loop I can't wake from. But I do wake up, and now I don't reach for her, I don't wish it back. I just sit with it, let it pass, make coffee, face the day. It's not a triumphant ending, but it's mine. My mornings, my rhythm, my quiet. There's peace in that. There's power in starting again, not with a bang, but with a breath. And I'm still breathing.